Uh,
And we are live now. Hello, everybody. This is Office Hours. We do this every week that I am available. Office Hours is your opportunity to ask me questions and things. And let me just share this link here for folks. And let me share my screen also. Yes, I was looking at a centered logo. I just added the centered emoji to Discord because I thought like that makes sense. Let's do that. So, yeah, Office Hours, just a weekly time for me to answer questions that people have about really anything. Happy to chat about anything. And I will tell you if I don't know, if I'm not a good person to answer the question, or I guess if your question is not safe for work or whatever, I'm not going to answer a question like that. But other than that, I'm pretty open to chat about whatever for the next hour. I give priority to folks who are in the Zoom call. So if you want to get your question answered, join the Zoom. But normally I'm able to get to all the questions in Discord as well. And I think that I just always like to find the last question. Yeah, probably right here is where we're at. So yeah, I'll just double check that. But anyway, yeah, ready to take questions from folks who are in Zoom. So fire away.
sure. So I had a question related to testing. So first, some context, right? So it turns out that in our CI environment is this massive beast. It's like 100 cores, 300 gigs of memory. It's like,
wow,
I know, it's amazing. And we started to see these like huge slowdowns when we were doing, like the deeper integration style test that's kind of like the best practice. And as of this morning, it's looking like we might be hitting like an old Jets bug, right? But like the whole thing had us thinking about like performance and like optimizing the test. And so like the first question that I had is there like we were wondering if there's like any guidance on like what a reasonable timeout is for like when you're using like MSW and React testing library, because in the Discord, like they tell me that like the default 5 second timeout might be not enough. But we're wondering if there's like any guidelines as to like, hey, like this test is definitely taking too long. Like something is like not working.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of thoughts on that. The fact that you have pretty beefy machines is pretty unusual. That's awesome. One thing that I normally say is that you want to check the run and band option. And so like often CI machines can't parallelize the test as well as our local machines can. And so using the run in band flag when you're running on CI can help. It just runs one test at a time. And so it can help improve the performance there. Even though it seems like that's the opposite, I guess it's better to run things in parallel, but not on CI machines, I guess sometimes. But it sounds like you have really beefy ones. I would still try it, but yeah, it sounds like that is probably not. If it runs fast on your local machine and it's slow on CI, then that's probably something to look into.
Yeah, there's some weirdness we haven't found yet with the CI machine, but yeah.
Okay, well, so yeah, then one other thing to consider is that well, yeah, okay, let's see it. So actually first let me get some more understanding here. Is it only slow on CI or is it fast or is it slow locally as well?
So it's only slow on CI, right? So most likely there's some misconfiguration there, but we just had some, I guess, some general questions about like, when is a test too slow?
Yeah, okay. Well, so as far as like generally like what's the threshold and everything, with integration style tests, you're testing more than you do with the unit test. And so if you were to say compare one integration test with the same number of unit tests that you would have to write to cover the same amount and get the same amount of confidence, you're by the end of it all, you're way faster with the integration test. Even though you have one test that seems to take a really long time, you'd probably need a dozen or even like 50 tests to get the same level of confidence if they were lower level unit tests that were mocking everything. And so you're definitely better off with an integration test. But I know it doesn't really feel that way because it's like, wow, this test is taking like 4 seconds or something. That's not good. So I am not as concerned about how fast a single test runs. I'm much more concerned about how much confidence I get from that test. And so yeah, so increasing the timeout is not my favorite thing to do for sure, but it is definitely I do that occasionally for bigger integration level tests. Another thing to keep in mind is that Jest and JSDOM, well, JSDOM in particular, is really slow. And so that is, yeah, I mean, like it's simulating the DOM, and it doesn't have the backing of, you know, a bunch of companies that are building browsers and stuff to optimize all of that. And it's all implemented in JavaScript too. So yeah, so it is pretty slow. There is a project called Happy DOM that is supposed to be way faster, and I'm pretty sure you can get that working with Jest. So that might be something too.
Yeah, that was the second question that I had, because we were wondering if there were any like sample repos showing with, you know, Happy DOM and Jest and React Testing Library and MSW all working.
Yeah, not that I have seen, but I don't expect it would be terribly complicated. In fact, I'm pretty sure everything would be exactly the same. It would just be some config in your Jest config. So if we go, yeah, so they've got a Happy DOM Jest environment here, and you literally just do either this or set up in your test environment.
Yeah,
that's probably it.
Yeah, right now we're hitting this weird bug where it's not letting node fetch work. There's an issue. We filed an issue there, so that's why I kind of were wondering if there were any examples of, you know, we're probably might be doing something wrong. So we want any examples of.
Yeah, so I've never used node fetch for tests before. What I normally have done is the wg fetch polyfill. This is what I've done for my tests, and this works out pretty well. There's also Undici, let's see, fetch, or here it is.
Yeah, so just some context. So under the hood, Happy DOM uses node fetch, and so like that's what the
I see.
Yeah, that's what's called. So Happy DOM is causing that weird bug in the Jest environment. So
gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so I guess you said you already opened an issue, so that avenue is I'm sure they would accept like a contribution or something, but yeah, it's as far as you can go there.
So that's why we're kind of curious if there's any like examples of that running, because we might, you know, there's a good chance we're like we set something up incorrectly, but that's where
yeah, what I would do in your position to determine that is just to make a like start from scratch, make a simple repo just to see if you can get the two working, and keep adding more and more stuff until the problem presents itself. And so then you can see, oh, it's when I do this is when we have that problem. And yeah, but the other thing to consider, maybe I'm still sort of investigating this, but vtest is an alternative test runner to Jest that is supposed to be blazing fast, as they say. And so that might be another one, and that has Happy DOM built in, and it's actually pretty similar to Jest. And so it doesn't have all of the features that Jest does, but you can configure it to be like almost a drop-in replacement. So that might be something worth investigating potentially. Yeah. I think that's all the advice I can give. That so to sum up, it's not necessarily oh no, sorry, there was one other thing. It could also be that your components are slow. So like there could be some actual performance problem in your app and that is causing your performance of your test to be really slow. And so maybe it's actually telling you some valuable information.
That's good. That's a good point. So is there only recourse there the React profiler? Is there anything?
Yeah. So Epic React has a performance module or workshop, and you can look at the React performance here. And let me put some links in here. I should probably be doing that anyway.
All right, maybe yeah, the only issue we have with that is that we're running an older version of React, and like the latest plugin doesn't work with that. But okay, I'll see if I can maybe I can find some old version or something like that. Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Like it could be just that the components are slow.
Yeah. So the performance workshop on Epic React will show you how to use the DevTools, not just the React DevTools profiler, but also the like the Chrome performance tab as well to identify where things are slow. And so, yeah, I would use that to kind of profile things, especially on like you'll want to go CPU throttling of like 4x and 6x to really show you like, oh, wow, that interaction is really slow. And a lot of that can come from applications that are really forms heavy and using connecting like every single form element with each other. So any time the user types anything, it re-renders all the things. And so, yeah, there are a number of things that I show in this workshop.
Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot. Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, so that I put that in the in here. It's the epicreact.dev/performance. And this is the repo for the material there. This one, of all the workshops, one is where the videos help a lot because the workshop material itself is like yeah, I just like the other ones, except a lot of the exercises are like add these 2 lines and then see how that changes things. So the code itself is not as valuable as the like experience looking at the tools and stuff. So the videos on Epic React Dev add a lot to what the workshop has. But you can still kind of go through things and practice with the dev tools with the workshop material itself. So.
All right,
cool.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else here in Zoom have a question?
Yep.
Hello.
Hello. So I asked this question a few days back, so I'll just paste the link in the chat.
Oh, okay. Get a direct link. That can be helpful. I gotta log in. Okay, I'll find it. It's Shikar.
Yep.
Okay. And you said this was a few days back?
Yeah, you almost went there. Yeah,
there it is. Yeah, the big one that I haven't read yet. Okay, do you want me to read it or do you want to just kind of explain it to me?
Yeah, I can explain that to you. So what happens with React 18 is this new strict effects that runs mount twice.
Yeah,
so
hate that a lot. I think that was a big mistake.
Yeah, there's a lot of Twitter threads going around that. So yeah, so I found this hook in one of the libraries. What this hook does is this runs only the callback only on updates and not on mount. So you see that there is a ref that that controls that. So I was wondering, because this hook would now break with the new strict effects. So I was wondering how to implement that with the latest strict effects in place. So what I came up with is to add another hook. So the second code snippet here, to add another hook and pass and have it an empty dependency, and then just in the cleanup of that, just set the ref back to false. So this works, but I was wondering if this is resilient to future updates as well. So if you read that statement, the second last one, is it possible that the first effect is called and then somehow the control gets suspended and the second effect is not called, and when the control comes back, React starts with the first effect again? So the solution that I've currently created relies on the fact that both the effects are run the same number of times. So if the first one runs once, then the second one also has to run once. Otherwise, it will break out of sync. So is it something that with concurrent features and all those things, this would be guaranteed that all the effects in your component will run the same number of times?
Yeah, great question. So I would be really surprised if they didn't call all of the use effects callbacks, and they decided to suspend or something. That would be, but I mean, the React team has surprised me before. The fact that strict mode does what it does now really surprised me. But yeah, I would be even more surprised if this wouldn't work as you have it here. Did you try putting this return inside of the?
Oh, actually, it will not work because the conditions, it will run on.
Oh,
every
right. Yeah.
condition.
Yeah. That makes sense. You just want it to see, hey, it's been unmounted. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So I don't see any situation where this would not work. It's a real pain that that this is the world we live in now. My recommendation is, and don't tell the React team this, I guess, but don't use strict mode. They made it useless when they did this. This was, I mean, I'm sure they have their reasons, but I think this was a terrible idea. But I could be convinced, I suppose. I'm sure I'm wrong, but my impression is that, like, wow, why did they do that? Yeah, like side effects. It's side effects. Like it's who knows what could have happened. Like I could have deleted a thing, and now I'm gonna go and delete it again. Like no. Don't run my side effects twice. It was a really bad idea. But anyway, it's the world we live in, and if you want to make, it's easy to say, well, just don't use strict mode anymore. But if you're making a reusable library, you can't just tell all of your users don't use strict mode. And so coming up with a solution like this to deal with the React team's decision seems like a pretty reasonable thing. So.
Yep. That makes sense. There's one more thing that I wanted to ask around strict mode itself. So I'll just paste the link in the chat. So this is an issue that I created on the React repo. So the problem here is that I was playing around with strict mode, and I found that with strict mode, strangely enough, the if you scroll down a bit, at times when it's expected to run twice, it runs only once for the first time, and then from subsequent renders or subsequent calls, it runs twice. And the answer that I got is really complicated. So yeah, I just want you to cover that. So let me explain that to you.
Holy smokes. This guy ran a blog post for you. Wow. Okay, and so your question is what exactly? Sorry.
Yep. So if you see that, so there's a simple click handler, and so there's the state updater. If you scroll above, no, a little more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you see that there's this handle click that calls the state updater function. So I've deliberately added the updater function and not updated it directly. So in strict mode, the updaters has to run twice. So click should have printed twice when I click the button. So but what happens is that the first time you click the button, it only prints clicked once, and from then onwards, so from second click onwards, it prints it twice. And this happens with I guess both with 17 and 18. Yeah, this happens with both 17 and 18. And if you scroll down to the second example, so there's a reducer. So reducers are also meant to run twice in strict mode, and the similar behavior happens here as well. So for the first time, it runs only once, and from second time onwards, it runs twice. So I get the reducer ran console log twice from second run onwards, and on the first run, it's only once. So if I click the button once for the first time, sorry, not once. If I click the button for the first time, it prints reducer ran once, and then if I click it again, it prints reducer ran twice. So I would expect it to run always twice. I don't know why it runs for the first time, and that is what this issue is all about. And this behavior, the reducer behavior, is only with React 17. With React 18, it doesn't happen like that.
Okay, so in React 18, it runs twice on the first time?
Yeah, with React 18, it runs twice on the first time. And only the reducer, the above, the state updater with React 18, it only runs once. So
got it. Okay.
there are very different behaviors. Like,
yeah, That sounds like a bug to me, but here it says, yeah, we removed eager bailouts from use reducer in 18, which is why it doesn't repro there. Yeah, I don't know. It's not very clear in here, but it sounds like a bug. I don't know what to say. Yeah, strict mode, man. I can't recommend it. Yeah, it's a mess now. Sorry.
Yep, it's really strange.
Yeah. Well, I hope you get some sort of resolution there soon. That's a pain.
Yeah, that's not really a problem. That was just, I was writing a blog post around strict mode, and I saw that, oh, I was trying to explain how it runs twice, and then I created an example and I saw that it's not running twice.
Yeah, man, that's how you learn this stuff, is you go deep and you're like, okay, I'm going to explain this. And so then you have to go deeper than you do when you're just like doing your day job. And yep, you learn a lot more that way. That's awesome. Cool. Well, good luck on the blog post and everything. Does anybody else have a question in Zoom? Okay, great. Then I'm going to go in here and we'll grab the question. I think we got to that. Okay, I think we actually, yep, we got to that one. And we got to that, and we just did this. Great. Francisco is asking regarding set timeout callback inside a use effect. Okay, so Francisco here, and actually I always like to say answering this now, just in case they're not watching now and they don't know that it's going to be answered. So we've got a component that has this use state, use effect button. When you click on that, you set copy to true, use effect runs. We have a timeout so that we can clear it, or yeah, so that we can set it to false. And so we display that text for just a little bit of time, and then it's no longer displayed. And then you clear it if the state changes. So what's going to happen is you click this, it runs the effect because this changed. It's true now, so we're going to set the timer. And then if user does nothing else, they're just looking at the UI, it's going to say set copy to false. That'll re-render everything. This won't be rendered anymore. The use effect will run, but because it's no longer copy, it doesn't do anything. And then this cleanup is here so that if the user clicks the thing, we set this timeout, and then the user navigates away or something, then we can clear that timeout so that we're not calling set copy on an unmounted component. Okay, cool. Having a hard time trying to test it due to the set timeout. After spending a lot of time getting 100% coverage on the component, I noticed that the wait for function accepts an array of options. And one of the options is timeout prompt after updating. Test something like this. Got 100% coverage. Hooray. Does the timeout option replace the use of use fake timers? Okay, we got a thread here going on. Thank you, Rupert, for jumping in. Probably answered the question. Whoops, that is not the thread I was looking for. I guess hello. Yeah, it's not in there. Oh well. Yep. Only thing trying to understand is why when I use fake timers in the code doesn't show 100% code coverage. So first I'll say that you 100% want to use fake timers. You do not want to wait the whole second and a half just to get coverage for this little bit. Bad idea. So you definitely want to use fake timers. So why you're not getting 100% code coverage, I mean, I don't see the test, and so I can't really tell you, but you are going to need to, well, hold on a second. Yeah, I think you are going to need to advance the timer. So we've got in Epic React, the bookshelf app, we have the screen, the book screen. There it is. This test, we have a couple fake timers. And so we start the test off with just use fake timers. We render the thing. We perform our action. Here, actually, let's go up to this one. This probably is better. And so yeah, we do our stuff in here. we're using a special user event. That's something required with the latest version of user event. So if you come up here and see our fake timer user event, we say setup advanced timers runs just.run only pending timers. And with that, when like user event automatically does some delays and stuff to simulate what like the user is typing and stuff. And so when it does the delays, it'll just run pending timers. And yeah, so where did we go? Yeah, so that's what these are using, is that configured user event for fake timers. And then we just wait for label text. In your case, you could probably, like, the user doesn't know anything about the timer. They don't care about the timer. What they do know is that this message goes away. And so you could say, wait for element to be removed. And then, yeah, and that should get you through. And because you're using fake timers, it's just going to advance the timers until the elements are all removed and stuff. So that's probably what I would do. Yes, and Shakar, yeah, if you look at the code coverage, it will show you the coverage situation. And yes, it is possible that the cleanup code is not run. Possibly. It should be, though, because at the end of every test, by default, we unmount the components. And so it should be running that cleanup, except that, no, it should be. Because when you set it to false, then it'll trigger the use effect again. It'll run the cleanup. And so, yeah, it absolutely should be. And I'm pretty sure what's going on is you're just not able to proceed this timeout or actually call the timeout callback because you're not advancing those timers. That's my guess. So, okay, cool. Hopefully that answers your question. Coming on back. So let's go up here. Matt was nice. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, no office hours. Sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so Matt, I'm answering your question now. Answering this now. Looks like we got 2 questions from Matt's. So sorry, Matt with a single T on the yellow team. Recently, I take part in the testing JavaScript.com lessons. In one course, JavaScript mocking fundamentals, you have mentioned that jest.mock is preferred over jest.spy-on. I've looked into several articles and noticed there are differences. Jest mocks the entire module and overrides all the original implementation. Spy-on mocks a specific function and is an extended version of jest function. If my understanding is correct, the question is, why should we use jest.mock most of the time? Can you provide an example how spy-on leads to a bug? Okay. So actually, I can pull this up if we go to, it is testing, or what is it called? Mocking, I can't remember. That's why we do need to go to the topics, testing JavaScript. Yeah, JS mocking fundamentals. So if we look at the test spy, here we go. So here I'm saying just spy on utils get winner, and here's utils, and we've got this get winner function. So we're doing that. So the reason, like, this is fine, it works. The reason that I do not prefer this is because in ES modules, when you, so we're using CJS, but in ES modules, when you import something, what you get is a binding to that thing. And so you cannot override any of those properties on the thing that you've imported. And that's what's happening here. And so what I meant in the course is that relying on that is relying on non-spec behavior that just kind of makes work, which to me makes your tests not more brittle, but like just less likely to be able to adapt over time. And so so that's why I prefer avoiding spy on. I absolutely use spy on for things like mocking stuff on window and stuff. It's just when I'm talking about modules, I prefer to use jest.mock because that's just embracing the fact that, okay, no, we're going to grab this, and instead of importing that module, we're going to import this one. So that's why I preferred jest.mock. But if you're happy with jest.spyon, more power to you. It's just, yeah, I just don't like it as much. I don't think that it necessarily could lead to any bugs. It just feels more wrong to me. That's all. So if you're happy with Spyon, keep using it. It's good. Okay. And by the way, if you're in the Zoom and you do have a question and I just keep going on Discord, feel free to interrupt me because you do get priority. So Ramsey is asking my thoughts on the new use event hook. So I have not actually looked at the RFC, but I have a guess on how it works. Yeah, I don't know. So the React team always said that like you should do, if you have a side effect based off of a user event, then that should happen in the event callback. And I disagreed because you cannot handle like multiple submissions and cancellation and like race conditions as easily. Like none of those things are as easily handled. And so I always did it and recommended doing it in a use effect because you can handle those things. The problem with that though is use effect also has a lot of foot guns. It's easy to do wrong. And so that's why, like for complicated stuff, I like using XState or just a library. For like if it's a data fetching thing, then I just use React Query. Now, of course, I'm using Remix and I barely ever do events on anything. Like you've got maybe reusable components, but those things are typically don't have to do all of the problems that lead to use effects awfulness. So most of the use effect, like most of what makes use effect really hard is network stuff, and Remix handles all of that for you. The exception to that is like really complicated client-side stuff, like the Call Kent podcast where you're recording stuff in the browser and you've got pause and you've got resume and you've got stop and all of that stuff. And that I use XState. So if you've got UI that's really complicated, then just use XState and now poof, all of your use effect problems are gone. So you use XState for all of the like complicated UI stuff, and then you use Remix for all of the products like app stuff. And now all of a sudden you don't have the problems that are solved by use event. So they are solving a problem for sure, but I don't have the problems that they're solving. So I don't know. And yes, Nick, it is really that simple. Just use Remix and use XState for the complicated stuff, and life is good, man. So anyway, use event. I'll take a look at this React use event thing. Where is use event? Come on, here it is. Nope. Oh goodness gracious. RFC. I need to sneeze. Dang it. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Yeah, it's like everybody is writing their own thought pieces on it, and so now we can't find it. Where is text? Is that where it is? Okay, event. Huh. Oh, it's a pull request probably. Yeah, there it is. Use event. So let me double check my understanding of, or my assumptions of what it is. Yeah, so define an event handler with always stable function identity. Yeah, right. And the reason is so that you can memorize the send button and not worry about this event callback invalidating your memoization. That's my guess. Yep, breaks optimizations. There it is. Always different function. And I'm just waiting to see send message, or really the send button there. Yep, there it is. React.memo. So that's what it's for. And rapid and use callback, preserve identity. Won't help because it reads the latest text. Always the same. They're not going to show what. Yeah, so the way that this works is it's going to be using the latest ref pattern, most likely. Oh, the latest ref pattern. So I'll just paste this here as a reply. We'll also put the this thing in here for context. But yeah, so the way that it works is probably something like the latest ref pattern. Of course, they don't need to use a ref because they are React, but like this is the latest ref pattern is how you could do this, and it has the same behavior as the latest ref pattern. This means that you lose out on other things, but what it really means is that it gives you the option to switch between the two things, which ultimately means that people are going to experience the bugs because they're going to start saying, well, let's use event everything because it's faster, I heard once. And then they're going to start experiencing bugs, surprisingly, which is a real shame. Yeah. Yeah, shouldn't refire when event handlers change. Yeah, so we've got reruns when any of these change. Selected room, theme, and muted. Right. I do want it to, okay, so what are they saying we do instead? Yeah, it's just when the selected room changes. Okay. Got it. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so I would just do the latest ref to solve this problem. And they're basically what they're doing is they're saying, hey, the latest ref pattern is a pretty good pattern. Let's codify that into React. And that's, yep, that's what it is. The fact that it's called use event is stupid. I mean, I sound really spicy and cranky, crotchety. Yes, I sound like a crotchety old React dev this morning. So I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I'm mad about strict mode. I think that was a mistake. Use event, I think, is a confusing name. It should be use latest callback or something like that. Because what this does is all that it does is it says the contents of this callback will always have the latest value of the things that it has access to. So the thing is that this function will be redefined every single time. We're getting a new function all the time. It's just that on message is not this function. It's a function that calls the latest function that it's provided. So it calls the last one that it was given, the latest ref. And so that's why, yes, you are defining a new function every time, but when you pass on message, or actually they're saying you don't even need to pass it, but you could as a dependency here. It doesn't make a difference because it's always going to be the same function. And it's just a function that calls the latest function that you gave it. That's all that it is. I think it's a good idea. Yeah, it's a shame that we have these problems in the first place. But yeah, holy smokes, it's a long thing. But yeah, that's what it is. If I'm wrong, feel free to tell me. Maybe I skipped over something, but that's basically the latest ref pattern codified into React, which I think is a good choice. Just I wish it wasn't called use event because people are going to be like, so it's for events? No, it's not. It's for any callback that you want to have the latest values on. You want to abandon the closures. I feel like it's going to lead to surprising bugs for some people who just decide to use it for everything because it's easier. Because it is easier. Yeah. What do you do? I guess we all should migrate to solid JS. I'm just kidding. Okay. I shouldn't talk about other frameworks. Like some people really like it.
Do you mind if I hop in with a hopefully
sure.
quick one?
Sure.
And if you can't answer it without a visual, that's totally fine. It's a sort of like inception memoization question. So I was contributing something. I was getting a infinite re-render using an external library's hook. I wasn't using it in an effect, but it must have been in an effect somewhere along the way. Like I passed it to React Query or something like that. And that used it in effect. And so this like every render it changed and yada, yada, infinite re-render because the object returned by the hook wasn't stable.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to contribute this. Like, I'm going to wrap the object it returns in a use memo, and that solved it. But what I was wondering is if they're all primitives, so it's just like, strings and numbers and stuff, that makes sense. But if something in that object is a function, is that now not stable again? I got to go one level up and memoize that function, and like keep like sort of like that Russian doll.
It spiders away from you. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and this is why I tell people to don't memorize and use callback unnecessarily, because when you start, then it just like, if you really want to get the benefits that it provides, you have to apply it to everything. Just really spiders away from you, like a big web of memoization. And the thing is, like, it's not like a web where you cut one of those strings and the web is still good. It's more like a Jenga tower, where you cut one and it all falls apart. So yeah, use event would help with this. Like the use latest ref pattern would help with that. The challenge is, like, I just don't want people using that until they understand this. You've got to understand how closures help you avoid bugs, and the bugs that you can create when you aren't taking when you are always just using the latest value. And so if you understand that, then yeah, go ahead and use event or use latest ref, whatever, to your heart's content. But yeah, the problem is real, and so that's why these things exist. But it's just, yeah, got to take it all with a grain of, let's watch out, I guess.
So like in that case where like a hook is returning an object and it's not memoized, so if you use that object as a dependency, infinite re-render. So it's like, oh, I should memoize that object. And now there's no infinite re-render because that object is stable or whatever. It's been memoized. Is that sort of the general gut check for like, yep, that's a good thing to memoize? Is like, if you are going to use that return in a custom hook, that function in a custom hook or whatever, like you're doing something that will be a dependency, you should call back it or memo it.
Yeah, normally, like, especially if what you're building is a reusable thing, then you're like, at some point, somebody's probably going to want to put this in a use effect or a callback or something. So yeah, normally it's probably a good idea to memoize it, provided that all the inputs are memoized themselves.
As well.
So
going up that sort of chain and being like, oh, this key in the object is actually a function, so I should make sure that function is memoized when that's being created, so that when it's used in the use memo, it's all the way up the chain.
Yep, exactly.
That makes sense. Cool.
Yeah. Or you can do the use latest ref or use event thing, potentially if that's acceptable for that situation. But
I'm
again,
just like that contribution was like premature. It's like, oh, now I've like contributed this, like, oh, this object is memoized and it's stable, but there's a function in that object that, like, do I now have to go to that library and be like, all right, let's memoize, let's like wrap that function in a use callback so that this like this PR now is like even more stable.
Yep. Well, and you can't even construct the objects without memoizing the callback. If you want to memoize the object. So anyway, this is why I say, like, everybody get on Remix as fast as you can. Like, you do, like, this, honestly, we're talking about these problems and I'm like, this feels like a world away to me, because it's been over a year now since I started using Remix, and like, I don't have these problems. Use this, use Remix for your day-to-day, like, regular everything. You barely ever use effect. It's just for focus management, which is what it's good for. And then you use state sometimes for, like, I don't know, maintaining some like whether something's open or closed, I guess. And then anything that's more complicated than that, then you just bring in X state, and like, there's a bit of a learning curve for that, for sure. But that's getting better. And it when you're all done, the code that you have with X state is way simpler than what you would have written yourself, and it's more bug free. So
internally, I'm definitely curious about looking into X state for internal project stuff. But yeah,
Hmm.
this is a GitHub
Yeah,
library that I was like,
you
oh,
can't like
I
bring
found
in
a
XState for a
yeah
library. Yeah.
for somebody
Yeah,
else.
but you can implement the same ideas and stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, I do have, whoops, that is not how you spell blog. I do have a blog post about finite state machines. Nope, that is nope. State
Yeah, I
machine.
think
Here it is. Implementing a simple state machine library in JavaScript. So this is when I was trying to figure out, okay, how does XState work? And so I implemented a very simple version of XState. And it's pretty simple. I probably, even for a library, probably wouldn't do quite this either. But that hopefully would help people get an idea of what state machines are. So I'll share that.
Sure.
But Reach UI does this a lot, where they've got, let's just see if I can, where's their GitHub? No, it was right there. I bet we can find one in here. Machine, no, state. It's in one of these things where they are using, they use state machines like all over the place. But of course, I'm not going to be able to find it when I'm looking for it. But dive in here. Oh, there we go. It's called Machine. And they have their own, they are using XState. They gave up. I know that when Ryan started working on this years ago, he had like this much code at the top of every one of the files that was like, here are all the states that it can be in. It was so clean. It looked so nice. But I guess eventually they decided, hey, let's just use XState and stop fooling around. So yeah, and when you're contributing back to a library, yeah, I mean, you can do state machine like things with useReducer. The biggest problem is useReducer doesn't have events, and so that you can't say when this state changes, I want you to trigger this thing. You start getting into use effect soup, and that gets into all of the stuff David Kortschid was talking about at Reactathon. So Real World React YouTube, and his talk was on, I think it was on day 2, somewhere in here. It was the one that showed a big slide that said that say goodbye to use effect or something like that. This talk was great by Ryan. Holy smokes, that was really, really good.
Yeah, I need to go through and watch those.
Yeah, I'm gonna find this here. Let's look at the schedule. It was on probably the 4th, I think. Pretty sure it was the 4th. Dave, yeah, it was in the morning. Oh, this was day 2. Huh. Oh no, that's right. Okay, so here's a little bit before Ryan's. Yep, that's Jen. Here we go. Let me get the time for when this talk started. And the tweet that I tweeted of his talk title got a lot of attention. Okay, share at that spot. So definitely recommend giving this a look. The problems that he talks about in here are a big part of what motivated use event, is what Dan said. So,
cool.
All right, sweet. Any other questions, Renee?
No, man, thanks so much.
Okay, cool. So there we go. That's use event. My thoughts on that. All right, Matt. Question is, how do you maintain and scale tests for commonly used elements and interactions that appear often? Okay, we've got a code sandbox. Let's get that loaded. We have 2 lists of posts on the homepage. Oh, by the way, answering this now. Yeah, for each of those, we're testing the home test. That they render okay. You can save a post. You cannot save a post when logged out. You can like a post. You cannot like a post when logged out. Okay. We have a recent page, and we run the same test there. Recent.test. We might add more pages, different lists of posts. Okay. Suddenly we're repeating the same test. Yeah, I thought that's where we're going. I'm yet to see an example of this in any course material, which would be great if that existed, or real life examples of this. Some ideas I had: mock the components and test they're rendered with props. Immediately no, but thought I'd mention it as a common knee-jerk approach. Yes, I would say that is a pretty common knee-jerk approach. And maybe not necessarily a complete no, but yeah, probably not. Abstract assertions like assert that thing. Yeah, so this is basically, we're going to keep testing it, but we're going to hide the duplication and try to make our code dry. This is probably also a no. Test all the nitty-gritty thoroughly in components and test happy paths only on pages. Yes, this is probably what I would recommend. Yeah, okay, so the thing is that without looking at the code sandbox, what I'm hearing is you've got a like mini library that you're using on a bunch of different pages. And in the spirit of integration tests, you want to test each one of these pages, and they have like different things about them, but they're all using the same core library. So this is why, and so what you end up doing is you're over testing. You're making sure that the integration for all of the different features is working. That's good. But you end up exercising the same code over and over and over and over again in each one of these tests without getting any more confidence that things are working. And the only additional confidence you get is that, yes, this component is being used properly, which TypeScript can get you a lot of from that perspective. But also happy path stuff can get you there as well. And so that's why your last one is probably what I would say. I'll look at the code here in a second, but if you test the core details of that core library and then just test the happy path of everything else, then you can verify that I know it's not really a library, but like think about it that way. You get confidence that the core thing works, and then confidence that the integration piece works for each one of those. Yeah. Okay. So let's take a look at at what we've got here. So you said it's in recent.test and home.test is where we're at. Pages, recent, and home. Okay. Let's look at home first. You got post summary, gen posts. Okay. So let's take a look at displays the list. Does not allow you to save when logged in. Render home with no user. Okay, so it's on the post summary is where all of this logic is. So that post summary is the reusable library. Components, post summary. And so this is the thing that you want to make sure that is working properly. Got it. So I would test the heck out of this thing. And then I'm pretty sure, yeah, actually, in this case, just verifying that this thing renders at all would be enough. Yeah, so you literally only need this test, and then you put all of the post summary thing does what it's supposed to do in the post summary thing. Yep, and that's it. There's your answer. That's what I would do. Good luck. I'm glad that your tests are better. So thank you for saying that. I hope that answers your question, Matt. Good luck. Okay, yeah, let's come down here. So this is the start of our session today. And now we've got Dominic's question. Do you have any experience with SSR dynamic pages from a CMS, like when the editor can create pages in the CMS and the menu should be dynamic as well? I can find many resources for dynamic parts of sites like a blog, sug, but not for a whole site. So, I mean, it depends highly on the tool that you're using. If you're, so as far as like your initial question, do I have experience with this? Yeah. So at PayPal, we had like our own little CMS thing. Actually, it wasn't even CMS. It was like literally translation files in the repo that like translators would commit to our Git repo. So nope, I don't. I have never used a CMS. not in a production environment anyway. I like, of course, I've played with CMSs and stuff, but yeah, nothing in production environment. Yeah, but I have some ideas. So there you go. When the editor can create pages in the CMS, and the menu should be dynamic as well. I'm not sure what you mean by the menu should be dynamic as well, but yeah, like creating dynamic pages and stuff. Yeah, so what I'm guessing what you're looking for is splat routes, and depending on what tool you're using, it's going to be different, but most tools do have something like this, and Remix does, of course. Splats. So there you go. You're looking for splat routes. And yeah, you can dynamically generate all of that stuff, and it's great. So hopefully that helps. Good luck. Hi, Darius. Strict mode, as far as the React team's position has evolved, treat use effect as the last resort. Yeah. They want you to use event callbacks for most things, and save use effect for idempotent effects and subscriptions to external sources. Actually, that's the thing. Like, they're like, okay, we're going to make use effect basically unusable in strict mode. But don't worry, we have an RFC for something that will make it so that you can use it. So like, how about you release the use event thing first and tell people, hey, if you want to use strict mode, then you need to move all your stuff over first. Like, use event should have come first. Strict mode doing weird things should not have come first. Yeah. Treat use effect as the last resort. It's the only thing we've got right now. Yeah. Grumble. Like subscriptions to external sources like streams and state containers. Yeah. Okay. Pretty big shift. Yes. They are learning as we are. That's true. And hopefully they learn from this. I don't know if there's been any backlash from other folks, but I'm not super excited about the way they went about this, and hopefully they don't go about it this way in the future. Use event naming is weird. I agree. They meant to codify something that happens at an arbitrary time in React's activity flow. Yeah. Yes, you're right. The latest callback is an implementation detail. You're right. Use event. Yeah, maybe they're it's like the least bad name they could think of. I don't know. I'm glad that I'm not having to make all those decisions, and I can just be mad about the decisions they make. Sorry, React team. I love you. I don't envy you. All right, Jacob is asking, me and my coworkers are on a big hook discussion. So I ask you in the community, it's an e-commerce solution with lots of APIs and the basket in this case. I'm guessing like the checkout basket. Yeah. So use one hook per API call. Use add item to basket, remove, so on. Use one to have, yeah. Okay, so you're just wondering which option I would go for. Can I say use Remix? Just kidding. I know not everybody can rewrite to Remix today. So if you can't use Remix, trying to think of like if maybe you can do a remix like thing. Yeah, it'd probably be too much work. So I don't know. I don't really care either way. I would do them both and then choose the one I hate the least. So this is a non-answer, but good luck. No, just kidding. Shrug. Both? Nope. I don't know. I would, like I said, just try them both and stick with the one that you hate the least. Akash, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're in here. How do you pronounce your name?
Akash.
Akash. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'll just read through this really quick. You've got a component page A, which mounts on mount calls an API to get some data. When the data is not there, we show a spinner. when the data comes, we render, page A content component to pass the data to. So our page A content component is responsible for rendering the UI. My question is, how do I write the test case for when the data is available? What would I get by to assert my tests? It's a large component. Okay, great question. So a couple of thoughts. And people might be surprised by my answer here, but this seems like a pretty good situation to mock page A content. Because all that page A is doing is rendering a spinner or rendering page A content. And so that's all you need to verify. It's just like page A and spinner, or page A content and spinner. Mock out page A content and say, did it render page A content? Yes, it did. And the way that you do that, let's see, I've got it in testing JavaScript. I'm gonna have to, I can't remember exactly what it was called. Shoot. And it's testing React testing library course. If we go to the tests and we look at transition, what is it called? Actually, it might not be in here. It might be here. Let's look for this transition. There it is, hidden message, mock component. All right, this is how you do it. This is what I like to do. No, this is sort of what I like to do. This is a bad example. Rats. Okay, this is what you're gonna do, or what you can do. You can do whatever you want. So you'd say jest.mock path to page A content, and it's going to return your page A content component, and this will render a div with a data test ID. Wait, now I've forgotten how I do test. Is it capital ID? Oh crap. I can't remember. Do the data test ID. Oh my gosh. Okay. Which is it? Akash, save me.
Yeah, data test ID. I is small, I guess. Yeah.
I is small. Okay. So here's a quick story on that. I originally had it as data test dash ID, and I still prefer that. But somebody in the React Native community said, hey, in React Native, there's like some tool that uses data test ID as well, but they don't have a space. I was like, well, let's stay consistent, because at the time they were way bigger than me. And I was like, I'll do what the bigger folks are doing. And now we're stuck with it. And I would prefer that, I think, or even that. I don't know if that works, but anyway. All right. So data test ID. So then page A content or whatever you want. And that is all you need to do. And so then in your test, you'd say, hey, it renders the spinner when the loading is done. Then it renders data test ID page A content. And then you test everything else just by rendering page A content. So this is a unique situation because you've split up things so well that you have the one thing that's responsible for loading the data, the other thing that's responsible for displaying it. And so because it's so well separated, and especially because it's such a large component, as you said, it has like header, footer, and list of things. Rendering just the whole thing and asserting on just some random part of it would also work just fine. And if you're happy with that, then go for it. Just like assert on any random thing, really. But because it's a big component, that just will add some time to your test. And so because of the way that it's separated, like you have it, I think you're totally fine to just mock it and assert on the props that you're passing. And actually, yeah, so to assert on the props that you're passing, you're going to need to do a jest function so that you can make sure that this is passing the right props. Because yeah, whenever you do a mock, you do need to make sure that the mock is being called properly. So yeah, you want to assert that it's rendered and also that the prompts it's passed are correct. Like I said, this is very against what I normally say, but because you've separated it so well, that I think that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. And can I ask a question related to that once? So in page A component, we'll test all the header, footer, and all that stuff in page A content dot test.js file, right?
Yeah, I would recommend testing that unless it's really simple and it's just like literally rendering some JSX and stuff. So I guess let me back up a little bit. If the component that renders all the data is like really, really simple and you don't need to write a bunch of tests for it, then I would not do this. I would not mock it. I would literally just test page A and then assert on whatever display stuff you want to assert. Yeah, sorry, I should have prefaced all of that by saying this. So if it's really simple, just do the one test and don't mock. But if page A content has a bunch of stuff in it, you want to test to make sure that things are displayed properly. And like, if the data is different, then I want it to display differently or whatever. Then yeah, I would probably split these up.
Okay. And don't we need to test about the props and all that stuff? Because, in that not only data goes, but let's say in the render function, we are doing some calculation as well, calculating some of the data properties and passing them as well as props as well.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're doing that, yeah, you're still probably safe to do the mocking as I've shown. You just need to have a couple of tests that say, given these different situations, page A content gets these variants of props. With that, you're starting to get me to say maybe don't mock to make sure that integration works nicely. Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah. So let's say that you're not going to mock. And then to answer your question, okay, so should I pick one element or whatever? So there's probably like if there is logic in the page A content that says here's the different things that we're going to render based on the data, we're going to render different stuff or whatever. Then you're probably going to need multiple tests that have the different variations of what the data could be. And so then like you'll just assert on whatever part of the UI changes based on the data that is different. And so I would assert on a couple of things based on the data that I've given, probably not just one. So now that you say that, I think probably better off not mocking.
Okay, got it. So I'm getting really confused in this. So I'll try this passing different data because we have to maintain integration as well, because we are migrating from enzyme to RTL, but in enzyme we have just tested we are passing the correct props or not, because enzyme exposes the function to have to test props as well if you have passed the correct props or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can get that same assertion with the jest function, a mock function. You just assert on what that mock function was called with, and you'll get that same capability there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Thanks, Ken. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that is everything except for Dween, or you can correct how I pronounce that. Sorry. What's your recommendation on databases? As mostly front-end dev, the choice between MySQL, SQLite, and Postgres for Prisma confuses me. Yeah, I am right with you. About a year ago, I was deciding on my database, and I hated it a lot. As a front-end dev, I don't want to be here. Just give me a place to put my data. I ended up going with Postgres because I wanted a distributed database cluster to distribute my data all over the world, and so nfly did that for me. So yeah, so I was pretty happy with that, but based on I overscoped my blog. I wanted it to be more than typical blogs. So yeah, that's why I chose Postgres. If you want something that's simple but powerful, then SQLite is great. It's amazing what you can do with SQLite. So if you're not sure, then start with SQLite. It's probably going to be able to do everything that you want it to. And by using Prisma, if you decide later that like, oh, SQLite's not going to work for me or whatever, then switching to Postgres or MySQL isn't going to be like a complete rewrite of everything, because that's one of the nice things about ORMs. Yeah, so I would start with SQLite if you're unsure. Like, and that's actually why the Indie stack for Remix uses SQLite, is because this is like the thing for people who are just trying to bootstrap something. They're working on something quick, or like they do want it production ready, but they don't want a bunch of complicated stuff. And especially as a mostly front-end dev, SQLite is like one of the easiest things to deploy and maintain relative to the other options. So yeah, I would say SQLite. Okay, cool. We're over our time now, so I'm going to wrap things up. Feel free, if you have any last minute things that you want to share, to do so. I just noticed somebody mentioned here. Yeah, Dwayne is also asked, what do I think of Zag.js? Never heard of it, but state machines are great. And if it is a state machine implementation, that sounds awesome. Okay, cool. So that's it. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Let me double check. I think that I am still around next week. Yep, that's the last day of school for my kids, so that's exciting. So I'm pretty sure I'll be around. And then the week after that is RemixConf, and I will not be around because I'll just have finished RemixConf, and I'm not interested in doing office hours after that. I'm just going to chill. So come to RemixConf, I guess, if you want to ask questions. And then the week after that, so that's the 27th, is at the end of RemixConf. The week after that is RenderConf, and I will not be doing that either. So on the 3rd of June. And then on the 10th of June, I will be around, but then on the 17th, hold on. Will I be? Hold on a second. It's not showing something that I'm pretty sure is there, and I just can't remember what week it is. You don't need to know this far in advance. You can leave if you want to. I'm just checking. So on the 17th of June, yeah, I will not be there on the 17th, but I should on the 10th. Yes, the 10th should be there. Okay, anyway. So I'll try to keep the thing updated on the office hours thing. Yeah, I think I've got a couple things on here I need to update. So yeah, thanks for hanging out. This is a good time, and we'll see you later. I probably will be live streaming later today. Maybe right now. I just got to check on something, and then I'm going to be live streaming. I'm working on the material for the advanced remix workshop. So feel free to tune in, and we'll see you